Hello, ni hao. Welcome to Mandarin Mama Chitchat by Mandarin Together, where two Taiwanese moms, Trista and Yaoyao, share their experiences in raising bilingual children, exploring identity, code switching, and embracing the joys and challenges of bilingual parenting. Come along with us on this exciting journey.
Hi, friends. Welcome back. I'm so glad you are here. I know your time is so valuable and you're listening to us and trying to learn and grow with us. I really appreciate your time. Before I jump in, I want to make sure you guys subscribe to our podcast because every Tuesday we will be bringing amazing guests to come on and share their story and journey with us, and I don't want you to miss it. And also after the show, make sure you go to our show notes because Tristan and I always have some freebies in there for you guys. We are also preparing a special course, so follow us on Instagram so you get latest updates. You can find us at Mandarin Together Now, Facebook or Instagram. Today we have Joni joining us. We had so much fun talking with Joni. She has such a great energy. She really light up the room. Joni is a Filipino. She grew up and raised in the Philippines. However, she has a Chinese descent. So when she was living in Philippines, English and Filipino was her first language. However, she went to Mandarin school, Chinese school. She went to Mandarin Chinese school growing up. So she has some Chinese foundation. However, she hated Chinese school when she was little. When she grew up, she actually worked in China 2 different times. And now she has a daughter that's 7 years old. She is continue on the journey teaching her daughter Mandarin. An important lesson I learned from Joni, she mentioned that she always thought it's almost impossible for her to teach her daughter Mandarin because she feels like her Mandarin is not very good, definitely not native level. And her husband and her, they speak English at home. But just seeing her daughter progress and their learning journey, she felt like we all have our weaknesses and strength. And her daughter is doing really great on learning Mandarin. And I feel like we all can learn from Joni that even if we're not native speaker, there is still possible that we can teach and help our kids to learn another language like Mandarin. Okay, let's welcome Joni. Hi, Joni. Thank you for coming here.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to chat with you because I know we chat a little bit on Instagram and you have a really fun story.
Oh my gosh, I don't know if that's fun. But yeah.
So, can you start telling us, like, take us back, like your childhood, tell us a little bit of your background, your cultural background, and then we'll start from there.
Okay. So I was born in the Philippines. But my grandparents were from Fujian. So 3 of my 4 grandparents all came from Fujian. So one of them was born in the Philippines, but she's also of Chinese descent. So her dad was from Fujian. Her mom, I thought, was full Filipino, but it turns out that she's not. I think she was probably also mixed Chinese because when I took the 23andMe test, the DNA test,
I did that.
I'm 97.5% Chinese. I was expecting 80 something because I was expecting half, like she's half Filipino. But it turns out she's more Chinese than I thought. So yeah. So I'm almost completely Chinese. But I was born and raised in the Philippines. So culturally I'm very Filipino. And then growing up in the Philippines, everyone is at least bilingual. So you have your fangyuan. And then you learn English in school. There are many different languages in the Philippines. So because I was raised in the capital, our two official languages are Filipino and English. So we learned those two in school. But if you were not in that place where Filipino or Tagalog is spoken, then you would have your own regional language at home. So you would have been trilingual.
Yeah.
But because I was in a place where Tagalog was spoken, so that was like the community language. And then in school, the medium of instruction is in English.
Yeah.
So that's the second language. And then because I was of Chinese descent, I was in Chinese schools. And so we were learning Mandarin in school. But at home, we were speaking Minanhua. So, and the Chinese schools in the Philippines they're not like here where you go once a week for an hour and that was like your Chinese school. In the Philippines, it's Monday to Friday, several hours a day. So like maybe at least 2 hours, 2 to 3 hours a day in the afternoon. So it's like a regular school in that sense. Like our Chinese schools are not separate. It's like you go to one school in the morning, your regular English, science, math, all taught in English. And then in the afternoon, you're being taught Chinese.
It's like
Mandarin.
immersion school, kind of like.
I guess it's what you would call an immersion school here. We just called it Chinese school. We didn't know the difference. Yeah. And then I came here and then all of these things are like, oh, okay, that would be immersion then.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So question then for the Chinese school part, right? Is it, are you guys taught different subject matters in Chinese, in Mandarin Chinese, or more just like language, culture? Because it's like a long period of time.
Right. So I guess it depends on the school. The school that I went to, it focused on the language in terms of memorizing a lot of stuff. So like there's Huayu and there's the Zhonghe, I think is what like Donghap is how we call it in Minanhua. So there's like the literature part, there's like the history, I guess culture part. I'm not even sure anymore because I don't remember anything. There's math. Okay. So we did math in English and then we would also do math in Chinese. But there weren't things like science. There's no, like the very technical things we didn't have. From time to time, we would have current events and they would give us newspapers that no one could read. Give us newspapers and things like that. There would be like competition. Like, so you write essays in your very limited Chinese. And there would be like one Chinese English dictionary that's getting passed around in the whole class. Like, waiting your turn for it. It's like, how am I supposed to write this without, knowing like all of these words that you need? So there are those. And in high school, I remember, because I would also get transferred to different schools because my dad's work will, like we would not move houses, but we would move schools because he would drive us to school. So what's, closest to his office, then we would get transferred there. So there was one school where they couldn't find a math teacher in Chinese. So lucky for the students, they didn't have math in Chinese. So sometimes it's like that. Sometimes if they couldn't find a teacher for it, then they won't have it. Oh, I remember we had computer. We had computer in Chinese. Yeah.
Do you remember what was like to me just listening to you as a child speaking almost 4 languages? You have that Filipino dialect and Mandarin English. Is it confusing for you, like thinking back, or it's just like since you are there, it's your life, and it's just normalized?
It was normal. Like I didn't know any different, right? Yeah. I guess in my mind that was how things are. Yeah. But I remember being jealous of the neighborhood kids who were non-Chinese because they didn't have to go to Chinese school. They didn't have to learn Chinese. Their school hours were shorter. Yeah. They didn't have Chinese homework, and Chinese homework was really bad, right? Like you have to memorize a lot of things. You have to write a lot of things. So I remember being jealous
Mm.
that they didn't have that part, of their life.
Yeah. Yeah.
But in everyday life,
Mm-hmm.
it was mostly in Tagalog and English, and then Minanhua at home.
Minanhua is kind of like we're from Taiwan, like Thai little bit.
Yes, it is. There will be differences, just like there are differences in British and American English, but it's the same
Okay,
language.
can you ask me if I have eaten?
你食咩？
你食饱未？
你食飽咩？你食咩？
it's very similar.
Yeah, I feel like I've lost a lot of it because there's no one to speak it with, and I don't hear it much. But yeah, that's one of the goals, to relearn it at some point.
Well, so when you're saying like when you're little, you're jealous, other kids don't have to go to Mandarin school. But I remember you told me you actually lived in China like 2 different times. And so
Yes.
actually it became really useful, right?
Okay, yes. So, I hated it when I was growing up. I hated learning Chinese. Like, it was so hard.
Every kid.
Like every kid, right? It was so hard. It was boring.
Yeah.
It felt irrelevant.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, I mean, if you were in Taiwan, it wouldn't be irrelevant, but we were in the Philippines, so it felt very far from my daily life.
Here in the US or in the Western
Exactly.
world.
Yes. Yeah. I think the very first, I don't know, spark that made me think of the possibility of relearning it again was in college. I took up literature, and when it was, you know how you read a little bit of everything, you learn a little bit of everything, and so when it was Chinese literature part, a part of me felt like, oh, how cool would it be if I could read this in Chinese?
Wait, is this college you're in the US or this?
In the Philippines. In the Philippines.
Okay.
So it's a world literature, right? So now it's when it came to China, and then we had a poetry recital of Chinese poetry. And of course, it was all translated into English, right? No one could speak Chinese. Well, there were some, but there were very few people who could speak Chinese. And like, I would be one of those, and it was very little. So I was looking at the poems and I was thinking, oh, wouldn't it be so cool if I could read this in Chinese? And I think I actually did the poetry recital in Chinese. And my friend was doing the English translation. And I did the Chinese, like the Mandarin part. And I think that was a spark. But at that time, I was also thinking, it's too late now. Like, how do I even start? And it's like, how I don't, like, no, this is not happening. Right? Like, no. And then several years after college, I was teaching at that time. I think I was like in my 2nd or 3rd year teaching literature. I was so bored. I was getting so bored with my life. and then I thought, what could I do to change my life? And that's when, I don't know how the idea got to me, but I started looking into teaching English in another country. Mm-hmm. So I was thinking Korea, Japan, or China. And of the 3, the lowest average salary when I researched it was China. But I was also thinking, well, at least I already know some Chinese. Mm-hmm. Very little, but at least it's not from zero. Yeah. Because Japanese and Korean would have been from zero. Yeah. So I said, okay, I made up my mind. I'm going to China. So I started applying. And then I got a job in the northeastern part of China. And I went there as an English teacher. So they did not expect me to know any Chinese at all. In fact, they expected me to know no Chinese because I was a foreign teacher. Mm-hmm. So I went there, and the their accent was so different from what I was used to. And it was so, I don't know what I was expecting. I guess at first I thought I wasn't expecting anything, but then you get there and then you realize this wasn't what I expected. But what was I expecting? But this wasn't it. Whatever what it was that I was expecting, this wasn't it.
Culture shock, a little bit of
It
culture.
was, yeah, it was weird. Because in a way it felt familiar, but at the same time it was very different.
Yeah. You probably have some kind of China in your head, like in your image. It's gonna be like this, it'll be like this.
Maybe. So yeah. Prior to that, I have only been to Hong Kong. In terms of, places where Chinese is heavily spoken. I've only been to Hong Kong. So I don't know if maybe in my mind I was thinking it's going to be like that. And I think in my mind also I was thinking, oh, China does not look like, so maybe I was like thinking, comparing it with Chinatown in the Philippines and Hong Kong. And Hong Kong feels more like Chinatown than China. So it's like, okay. And then it was also very different in the sense that now everyone is Chinese. But there was a part of me that felt like if I see this face, I have to speak to this person in Minanhua. Because in growing up, once you see a Chinese face, you automatically start thinking in Minanhua and like talking to them in Minanhua. I had to keep stopping myself, like, no, wrong Chinese. That's not.
You speak so many languages. I guess you have to code switch so much.
So I guess that's like there's a confusion in my brain that I'm like consciously saying, no, that's not it. Stop. Like I'm stopping myself from using the wrong language because I'm so used to, associating visually what people look like to the language that I would use with them.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was like the first few months it was like that. It was like I have to suppress the Minanhua. My Minanhua isn't even that good, but it just wants to bubble up when I saw a Chinese face. Yeah. So it was like that at first, and then their accent was so different. It felt like they were growling all the time because of the. I was like, oh my goodness! And then the switch also from 繁体字 to 简体字, and I learned 注音 growing up. So I got there, and it was all in pinyin. No one even really knew 注音. So there were those shifts that I had to really consciously say to myself, I have to relearn a lot of things. And then I was in a city, a very small city with a very small foreign population. So there was no market for Chinese books for foreigners, for foreigners wanting to learn Chinese. So I had to go to a neighboring city and buy my Chinese books there because there was just nothing, no materials for adults learning Chinese. And yeah, so I had to relearn everything. I had to, and there were a lot of things that I thought I knew, but it turns out it was completely different in the mainland. And I didn't know at that time also that we were actually being taught Taiwanese Mandarin. I thought Mandarin is Mandarin, right? I didn't know. So in my mind, I was thinking, wait, who lied to that first person who was teaching Mandarin, and everyone just followed suit? And it was so funny because I would be learning it, and I would be getting from things that I thought I knew, right? For example, this character.
Huh?
But we were taught Han. We were taught Han all my life. All my life, I was reading it as Han.
Wait, that's different, right, Trista? You can't say both, right? He.
Yeah, but I think in Taiwan people say Han more, and in China people say He.
So I never. Well, there was maybe one teacher who mentioned, sometimes it's He. But so in my mind, a child learning the language, I was thinking, okay, sometimes it's He, but it's really Han. right? So it's just always Han. And then I got to China and everyone was saying her. So I was like, okay, because sometimes it's her, right? But why is it all the time her? When is it Han? And they're like, they looked at me as if I was crazy. I was like, it is never Han. It's always her. Like, no, it's Han. I swear it's Han. Like, my Chinese is really bad, but it's not that bad. This is a very common word. This is a very simple word. I know it's Han. They're like, no, never. It's always her. So I was like, oh my God, my life is a lie. Don't know which ones, because it's so random, right? You don't know which ones that you were taught differently.
Yeah, probably a lot.
A lot, and the more common ones is like that one, and then in way. They always say in way, and then I was like
the tones maybe different.
The tones, and then I asked again, but shouldn't it be in way? And they're like, again, I was like confused. It's like, no, it's in way. It should be in way. And they were like, no, in way. It's always in way.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh.
Probably a lot of words that use different, like potato. In Taiwan, we say 马铃薯, and in mainland China, they say 土豆. So you're probably like, what is that?
Okay, so that is not as common as the he and in way.
Oh, okay.
So I probably didn't even know how to say potato.
Yeah.
In Mandarin at that time.
Yeah.
So for me, it's always 土豆, because when I got there and then we had to order and then someone told me this is 土豆, so it's just 土豆for me. So I have a lot of those. So now I'm just a mix of things and I don't know which is which anymore. Because in my mind, that's always 土豆. I don't know the Taiwanese way of saying it.
I mean, if you say it, like, we will understand it, you know?
Right.
Right. But yeah.
And then at that time, I didn't know it was a mainland and Taiwan difference. I was just trying to figure out why I was taught this way, and then you guys all say it's wrong. And so I was thinking, were we taught wrong? Was it like, and so I was also thinking, so there's this whole Chinese population in the Philippines that's saying things wrong. What? It was crazy. I think I did not know that it was Taiwanese until I came here, which was more than 10 years after. No, maybe like, it was many years after. And I came to the US, and there was this girl who's from the mainland, but she had a boyfriend, a Taiwanese boyfriend before. So when I started telling her about that, she was like, oh, it's because it's Taiwanese. Because my ex-boyfriend also like reads things like this. And so that's when I realized, oh, okay. So that's not too bad. We weren't being taught wrong.
It's different.
It wasn't wrong. So yeah.
So you were there for 5 years?
No. The first time I was there, I was just there for a year and 4 months.
Okay.
And that was when there was a lot of heavy lifting in my head, because it was when I was shifting from 繁体字 to 简体字, from 注音 to pinyin, and relearning how things are being said and pronounced. So it felt, the way I describe it to people is that when I was there the first few months, it felt like a part of my brain was waking up, because there were a lot of it there that I wasn't aware of. And there were things that I did not expect to understand, and I was understanding. There were things that I did not expect to know how to say, but somehow I could say it. So it was, the people thought I was some genius who just learned the language, learned this really difficult language in like a matter of a month or two.
Wow.
But it wasn't because I had the foundation, because it was there and I just had to wake it up.
Yeah.
Use it get used to hearing it, get used to speaking it, because a large part of it was the 习惯, right? If you're not used to using it, even though it's there, you won't be able to use it. But because I was in an environment where I should use it, then it was easier to come out.
So you did not go to, so everything was like kind of self-taught and just in the environment and like reactivate your previous knowledge. You didn't really go to like take lessons or anything.
Right, because there was no one to take lessons from. There were no classes for foreigners. There was nothing. So it was all just daily living. And buying the books and going through the books. And when there are things that I don't understand, I would ask people. And that was how the first part of my relearning journey took place.
That's awesome, though. That's impressive.
Yeah, I guess so. You know what? I don't even, because when you're there and you're doing it, you kind of just do what you have to do, right? But now thinking about it, it does kind of sound impressive.
It is.
Did you go back to Philippines then, or what after that?
Yes. So after my contract with the language school that I was at ended in a year, and then I moved to Beijing because I was thinking, okay, I'll move to a bigger city so I can take classes or whatever. You know, it would be easier. I went to Beijing, looked for another job, found another teaching job. But the job that I found was with a foundation that would send teachers to different teams, different national teams. So I was sent to the national shooting team, and I lived with them in the training camp. So there were no lessons, lessons I could take, or classes I could go to, but I guess it's the same way. I can ask them when I have questions, and like conversation wise, my Chinese improved. But again, I was there to teach English, so I was encouraging them to speak in English more and speak English with me, right? But yeah, so I was with them for 4 months, and I was again starting to get bored. So I was like, okay, I think I'm going home. So I went back to the Philippines.
What you end up
At
in
that
the US?
time. Oh no, there was no US at this point in my life. I didn't know I was going to the US at that point.
Wow.
It was just I was in the Philippines teaching, and then got bored, went to China, teaching, got bored, went back home to the Philippines. At that point, home was the Philippines.
Yeah.
And then so I was working on my thesis, my master's thesis. I was taking my MFA in creative writing even before I left. So I was teaching, but I was also working on my MFA thesis, which was a novel. I was writing a novel, and it wasn't coming out. So when I went to China, I was thinking, when I'm there and I don't know anyone, I don't have any friends, I'll have the time to sit down and think and write. Of course, it didn't happen, but that was like one of my I guess justification to like go to China. So I said, okay, coming back home to the Philippines, came back home. And then because I just got back and I was unemployed, I thought, okay, now I'm going to write. So I wrote for maybe 4 months. So that was like the first draft of my novel. And then I couldn't squeeze anything out of me anymore. So I started looking for a job. And so I found a job which was translating Chinese to English, English to Chinese, mostly English to Chinese, because it was in an architectural firm. It's actually a Hong Kong based firm, but the designing was happening in the Philippines because it was cheaper. Like labor is cheaper in the Philippines, so all the designing, all the whatever else they were doing was being done by Filipinos. So they would design in English, right? So they would label red brick, or like, put grass here or whatever. So my job was to translate those into Chinese characters, because the actual projects were in the mainland. Like the actual building of like hotels and things like that were happening in the mainland. So the instructions were coming from Hong Kong. People were doing like designing in the Philippines using English, and then I will translate those to Chinese so that they would bring it to China and build those things in China. And I was thinking, oh, my Chinese is going to improve because it's translation, English Chinese translation. But again, it was so boring because it was basically phrases that basically you just cut and paste. Red brick, there's already a list of words that are most like that are commonly used, and then so you just type out red brick and it will show up, and you just copy and paste that and you just put it there. So it's like, this is mind numbing. I cannot do this. So I quit that after like 3 months, but I actually stayed on in a company to take on a different role. And I also did that for a few months, but a friend of mine reached out to me to ask what I was doing, because she was working at this company that it's a consulting firm, and it's about security security related stuff. And they were looking for someone who can write well in English, but about China. So economic, cultural, political, security stuff.
I
about
realize
China.
all your jobs is related to like either Chinese culture or a language.
Yes, I guess so. Yeah, you're right. Let me think if I have any, because I might have had other jobs that did not. But
Like you
yeah,
just
so
told
far.
us 4 or 5, but they're all related to like translating or like teaching or living in China and
Yes, yeah, yes. It's about language, teaching, literature. Yeah, you're right. I guess so.
Yes, so learning Mandarin and that is really helping you.
Yeah, well, at that point, I got the translation job because of the Mandarin, and I guess in a way I was also seeking those kinds of jobs.
Yeah.
Because I was also thinking, I already put in so much effort and time, so I don't want to just forget it.
Yeah.
So I was probably also leaning towards those kinds of things. So my friend asked me if I'd be interested to apply.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, let's give it a try. So I tried and I got the job. So it's mainly a writing job, but they wanted someone who understood China, because China is kind of a different beast, right? It's hard to really understand it unless you've lived here, you've lived there, or you have some sort of background. So I think, and they were thinking it's easy to find someone who can write, but it has to be someone who can explain China to people who have no prior knowledge of China.
Is this like a journally? Like who are these people reading your piece?
Right. So it's a consultancy firm. The company is a consultancy firm. It was American owned. So the clients were mostly American companies who have a business interest in China. So it could be companies, and it was during that time when there were a lot of American and Western companies going to China and like starting factories or partnerships or hiring people from China. There were a lot of those companies. So, and they don't know Chinese. They don't know China. So even if they have, a Chinese American on board, it's also still different if that Chinese American was born and raised in the US.
Oh yeah.
And right?
Yeah.
So it's still very different. They thought they knew, but they don't.
They don't. Yeah.
So yeah.
So that's
and
led
it
you
was
did that let you to move to New York? Is that
indirectly. So funny because so I was doing that in the Manila office. I was doing it for like 3 years in the Manila office. And of course I started getting bored again. I'm like so easily bored.
you need challenge?
But it took me 3 years for this one, so it's not too bad, right? That's like my longest. So, but then I started talking to my boss and I was telling him I probably should start looking around because I'm starting to get bored. But we have a Shanghai office. That company has a Shanghai office. And my friend who reached out to me, she was actually my classmate in elementary school. So she also went through the same Chinese, background that I went through. But after college, I think she went to Beijing to really study Chinese. So she was the head of the Shanghai office. And then my boss said, you know what, let's send you to Shanghai. Let's send you to the Shanghai office and, do your job there. So I thought, oh, okay, we can try that. Let's do that. So I was sent to Shanghai for a year. But prior to moving to Shanghai, I was in an online dating site. So before moving to Shanghai, I changed my location from Manila to Shanghai. But I was still in Manila. And my now husband, but at that time, a stranger, saw my profile and we started chatting. And so this guy, he was born and raised in the US, but he's Chinese. So he's Chinese American.
Okay.
So at that time, he was in Shanghai because he was helping his dad out with the family business. So he was in Shanghai and was also in the dating site and found me. And then we kind of started chatting. I was at that time processing my papers. So there was a long weekend. I can't remember what the holiday was, but he came to the Philippines to meet up with me for that long weekend and then went back to Shanghai. And then after all my papers were processed, I moved to Shanghai. So I was there for a year and then so we kind of started dating. Yeah. So cuz that guy is a New Yorker. That's how I indirectly came to New York because of the job that I had at that time. Yeah. So after a year again, I was like, okay, I think it's time to go home. And also, so he was like flying back and forth New York and Shanghai at that time because I was in Shanghai. And then I moved back to the Philippines. He was flying back and forth New York and Manila. And so at that point, we were already also evaluating our relationship. Like, where is this going, right? Like, he can't keep on flying back and forth.
Yeah.
So we had to pick a place. We had to like think of where this is going. And so we've decided, okay, I'm going to move to New York.
Yeah.
And, started processing my papers in Manila. And then I moved to New York.
And now
so
you guys have 2 kids.
We only have one.
Oh, one kid. Oh, and then I see on your Instagram you're teaching Bopamafa and you're
Right. Yeah. So her I didn't have to teach her Pinyin. She kind of figured it out by herself.
Oh, wow.
So because in my mind I was thinking she saved me the time and energy.
How did she figure it out? She went to like immersion school?
No.
How old is she?
She's 7, but when she, I think her reading and maybe language skills are just are just strong. I don't know, but I
Maybe she got it from you.
maybe she got it from me.
Yeah.
But I didn't. In fact, at first, I didn't want to teach her pinyin because I want her to recognize the characters.
Yeah.
And I felt like the pinyin will be a crutch. Even the juin for me is a crutch. I would always, growing up, I always relied on juin.
Yeah.
So my character recognition wasn't that good. It still isn't, I feel like. But with her, so I started with just the characters first. But it can't be helped that sometimes the resources would have the pinyin there.
Yeah.
And I guess she just figured it out. At the same time that she was learning how to read in English, she was also figuring out pinyin.
See, it's confusing because one of my Chinese teacher told me that it can be confusing
It can be.
because if they're like just learning the alphabet, like apple, and then learning pinyin and alphabet at the same time, it can be. But apparently, not for your daughter.
I guess it's different for everyone. Like,
Yeah.
Because in my mind, I was also thinking it can be confusing. But there was this one time when we were in Brooklyn, I was volunteering at the library. I was leading English conversation groups. So all kinds of people come, right? So there was this Chinese family who was there. The husband and wife would come, and they have one son who would, just be around the library doing his own stuff while we're doing the English conversation group. And I think I asked her, because at that time her son was maybe 10 years old, something like that. And I asked her because they were only in the US for a short time. So I think I asked how their son's English is. Because he seems like he could have moved to the US like when he was younger, and you can tell that it's not his first language, but his English was also really good. So I kind of asked about it, and then she said when she was teaching him how to read, he wasn't confused with pinyin and English reading.
Mm-hmm.
And so when she said that, in my mind I thought, okay, so it can be done. It's not you don't have to totally, choose. You can introduce and kind of expose them to both, and they will figure it out. You kind of just trust, right? There will be doubts, there will be fears, but you also kind of just trust that they'll figure it out. And I did have to I guess I worried also, but she proved to me very early on that she'll be okay.
You teach everything on your own? She didn't go to Chinese school?
Um, we started with just me teaching her everything. And then just before the pandemic, we didn't know there was going to be a pandemic, but just before that, we enrolled her in a play school. I think at this time she was like 3 years old. And so it was just, playing and singing and some movements and things like that in Mandarin. So that was once a week. And we didn't get to finish that. The last 2 sessions we had to do online because that was when everything shut down.
Mm-hmm.
But so that was the first time that she was like out in the world and it wasn't me.
Mm-hmm.
But most of the things were still coming from me. I had to learn songs that I did not learn when I was a kid. I had to learn all of those things. I had to fill up the gaps that I didn't know I had.
Mm-hmm.
I had to relearn and learn a lot of things and then pass it on to her. And then she started pre-K, and we were in Brooklyn, and there was a dual language program in some pre-K schools. So we chose one that's like fairly close. It wasn't the closest to us, but it's the closest that has the dual language program. So we enrolled her there. So it alternates English one day and then Mandarin the next day, English and then Mandarin, English, Mandarin. But I didn't know like how much she was learning, and at some point everything will be online, right?
Yeah.
So at that point I will like observe her, and it seems like when it's Mandarin she was just blanking out. But I mean, whatever. I was like, it's exposure. Whatever she gets from it, great. If she doesn't get anything from it, it's not like we lost anything, right? So just trust the process. But I realized that she was learning certain things because there was one time at home she told me that she was going to go niao niao. I didn't know niao niao. I didn't know. So I was like asking her, what is that? And then so she told me, and I was like, oh, because all my life it was just 小便 to me. That was all I knew. But and then she told me what it was. I was like, oh, okay. Oh, she's learning, and now she's teaching me. So now I have a new word that I learned from her. So there will be like little things like that makes you think, okay, it's something's clicking. She's remembering things. But yeah, so we did that dual language for pre-K. And yeah, so you don't know, you don't really know, you kind of just trust and hope that she's learning. And then after that we moved to Long Island, and it wasn't like there's not that many things to do that are Mandarin related, which is how I met this other Chinese mom who also just recently moved when we moved. And she was also looking for opportunities for her kids to learn. So at first we were thinking, oh, let's do play dates and stuff. But of course the kids would all speak in English, right? And even us ourselves, we would speak English to each other. So, but it was good to have that kind of, in a way, support that that you're not alone in this journey.
Oh yeah.
You have someone who's also going through the same things that you're going through. And we could like exchange resources, we could compare notes. And then just recently, this past summer, we started the Little Mandarin Stars.
I saw that, yeah.
Yes.
Can you tell us about that, more about that Little Mandarin Stars?
Yeah, so it's she was born in Hong Kong, but she came here as a very young child. So she also went through Chinese schools in the US, and I think she also went almost every day, because her mom was a teacher and in those schools. So her Chinese school experience is a lot more rigorous than other Chinese Americans. And the same way, I think she also learned the Taiwanese Mandarin more, and she also learned the Fanti Zi. So there were a lot of similar things. So we said, and we both hated Chinese schools, right? So we said we should have classes wherein kids are exposed to Mandarin, but in such a way that they don't hate it. Because we hated it.
Yeah.
Like with a passion. We hated it. So we thought of, okay, maybe we can do like, mommy and me classes. We can do, so very recently we did the arts and crafts in Mandarin.
Is it done online, or you guys go?
No, it's all in person, locally. Yeah. So the problem is because we're in an area where there's not that many Chinese people, it's harder to find people to join the classes. But yeah, we're we're trying our best.
So you
Yeah.
design like something fun, like you guys sing. How does the
Yes.
class look like?
So we've done like mommy and me classes at the library. So the mommy and me classes that we did in the library, it was all free. So uh the mommy and the kids would come, and then we would like teach them songs, like sing songs to them and introduce certain characters like San, like very very simple stuff. Um Marching while counting so that they'll memorize like the numbers. um and then sometimes we would read a simple book. What else have we done? So yeah, there's that. The arts and crafts, the intention was for it to be full immersion, and for the kids that are participating to be kids who are already speaking the language at home. It doesn't have They don't have to be fluent, they don't have to be like you know that good in it, but there has to be a prior background.
Yeah.
But it was so hard to find that, so we had to change course and make it into it's arts and crafts, but we're teaching simple words. So it's the colors, simple like words like kwa, because like we did like flower things, or like sin because we did like a Valentine thing, things like that. So in my mind I'm thinking, because when we were thinking about that class, we were thinking, oh, our kids will be perfect for a full immersion because they already know some, but they need more exposure, and they need to like learn it in such a way that they didn't know that they were learning it. And like in my mind I was thinking, oh, okay, that would be perfect for her. But because we changed course, I feel like, okay, there were beginners, but at the same time it's good that she's seeing that others are also learning it, that others value what I'm teaching you. And I'm not just trying to make your life hell. Like there's value to it, other people would like to learn it.
Yeah.
Because at that point it would feel like, oh, she's too advanced for this class. She's too advanced for this class, right? But I was also thinking, oh, you know what, it's fine, because she sees kids learning it. These will now become her friends, and they're all wanting to learn the language.
And you probably can relate too, because when you said you and your friends started this because you guys hate Chinese school, and that's like so many people here, like even my generation, like my husband grew up here, they went to Chinese school, and it's like nobody likes it.
Nobody likes it, and nobody ended up learning it.
Yeah,
right? Like, save for the really simple things, you forget everything. I forgot everything.
Yes, I mean, I never heard a kid say, "Oh, I love Chinese school," and back in the days, I went to Chinese school and I just love it. Like,
right,
I'm sure there's some out there, but
yeah, you're right. I mean, no one. I mean, it's just the idea of school, I guess.
yeah,
just the idea of
but then
school.
look at you when you grow up and you're like, you know what? I want to learn it again. It's interesting, and then you look for job, like
yeah. But you know what? When I look back, it wasn't like I have always liked learning languages. I have always enjoyed thinking of how the patterns work, like how you can substitute this word to make it like this. And I've always liked that. And I guess the first language that I was aware I was learning was English. Right? Because for Tagalog, it didn't feel like I was learning it because it was just there. So I feel like my Tagalog grammar is actually really bad, and I can't explain certain things because I was like, it just sounds good. That's my explanation. Like, it sounds good. I don't know why it has to be that. But with English, I can I can tell you this, you say it like this because this is the rule, right? And I enjoyed that. So I remember when I was very young, maybe up to grade 2, 3, I actually enjoyed composition in English or Tagalog or Chinese. I actually liked it because I like writing. And I remember I only started gradually hating it and dreading it because my Chinese was not improving. So it should gradually be improving, and I should be like gradually making my composition better and better, right? That happened with English and Filipino. It didn't happen with the Chinese. The Chinese was stunted at that point. But the English and the Tagalog improved, I guess maybe because environment wise, it was easier to acquire. They were easier to acquire, and it wasn't that way with Chinese.
So for your daughter, like, is she loving learning Chinese? Any pushback? And do you guys speak English at home or half and half?
Primarily English. When I remember to switch, I switch. It's not half and half. It's definitely less. Chinese is definitely less than half.
Okay. So what's your goal with your daughter then?
Right.
Or you can answer my first question first. Like, is she
is she enjoying it?
Yeah, or any pushback?
I don't want to ask her that question because then it'll make her think, and then it'll make her realize that she's not enjoying it.
So funny.
Because at this point, I feel like it's just something she has to do. Just like brushing her teeth.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Just like, like those things. So if she realizes that she actually has a choice, then she would choose not to do it. Of course. Right?
Yeah.
So at this point, I was like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Enjoy it or not. I don't think she enjoys it. Okay. I don't think she enjoys it.
But I'm saying that's good because she's not complaining. She's doing it.
She's not complaining, but at the same time, I forgot to tell you that now I have enrolled her in an online Chinese class. It's one-on-one with Preply, on Preply. So it's twice a week, half an hour each time. She complains about that. So if it's the day when she has a Chinese class, she would say, I hate Chinese class. I don't want to go to Chinese class.
It's not fun. It just...
I feel like how fun can you make it if it's online?
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's very limited. So what happens is the teacher would make her read things and would do like a 对话 with her. And I guess that's boring, but then what can you do?
I need to tell you this Chinese teacher. We interview her. Her name is Minji, and she owns this. It's called Creative Chinese School. Okay. Creative Chinese School. Oh my gosh, she is amazing. And I will share her information, like the way, because we were interviewing her, and she has so much passion and energy, and the way she teach kids is so creative. Like, she makes it fun. So yeah, maybe I'll pass the information along.
Okay.
But you're right, like online, anything online is hard because you're just staring at the screen, you're sitting there, and we're learning Mandarin. It's a hard language, so it's hard to make it fun.
Yeah, it's true. But yeah, so there's, how parents are always complaining how when you talk to your kid replies in English and things like that. It happens with her. So it happens with her.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there are also times when she would initiate a conversation in Mandarin. Like, she would say something like, Mama, 我饿死了. She would say things like that. And I was like, okay, so as long as, she is using the language.
Yes.
And I don't mind so much that she replies in English. Of course,
Yeah.
ideally,
Yeah.
I would want her to reply in Chinese, right?
Yeah.
But I also understand
Yeah.
that it's hard sometimes.
It's my struggle too. I have a son, he's 8. My daughter's 11. And I would say now your daughter's 7. It's like when they go to elementary school, we can blame them. They're born, raised in US, and all of their friends, classmates, teachers, environment, they spend 8 hours a day at the school, all English, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I do see they starting to speak more and more and more English, and they'll reply back in English.
But do you talk to them 100% in Mandarin?
I would say 80-90%.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, I aspire to that, but I feel like I cannot reach that level. But I would be happy with just 50%. That's true. That's true. See, that's the thing. I would always be, at first I was thinking it would be impossible to teach my child Mandarin because it's not my first, it's not my second, it's not even my third language.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, it's impossible. But, oh yeah, you asked about goals, right?
Yeah.
So at first, I think when she was a baby, when she was like really, really, really baby, less than a year old, I was thinking, you know what? If she can just understand, I'd be happy with it.
Mm-hmm.
If people are talking about her and she knows, things like that, or like she understands what people are talking about, even if she cannot speak it, I'd be happy.
Yeah.
And then I think I started introducing Mandarin to her at like 1.5 year of age. And I wasn't even expecting anything. Like in my mind, my goal was for her to understand. That was my goal. So I remember she was eating something and I asked her, how churma? And then I was telling her, is it delicious? How churma? And then I said, you should reply, 不错, not bad, 不错. And I wasn't expecting her to repeat it to me. But she started saying 不错, like in her cute little voice, 不错. And so at that point, I thought, oh my God, she can speak. Why did I think that she's not going to learn to speak it? She can speak it. So that's like my initial spark to like think, okay, I don't mind if she can't read. I don't mind if she can't write.
Of course.
If she can speak, if she can communicate and converse in Mandarin, I would be very happy. Yes. So that was my next goal. And then I started talking to her more in Chinese and all the songs and like,
so your goal is changing.
The goal is constantly changing.
I love that.
It's a very loose goal. Like it wasn't
that. Like you did not set up a huge goal when she was like 1. She needs to read. That was me, and I don't think that's doable.
Yeah, exactly. Because this is what I realized. Setting a goal can be very frustrating. So what I do is I celebrate milestones.
Yes.
I celebrate milestones. I don't have a real goal in mind, but every day we're doing something. And before you know it, by the 4th month, 5th month, she can recognize this many characters. I was like, I didn't have a deadline for it.
Yeah.
I just, every day we just do whatever we can. And then I started counting the flashcards. It was like, 50 words, 100 words, 150. Okay, let's keep doing it. And so, but the next goal was speaking, right?
Yeah.
Like listening and speaking. And then so she started talking. She started communicating in Mandarin. Not 100%. And I don't communicate 100%. So that's not even, I know that's not something we can reach at this point. But there's this one thing again. I thought I would not teach her how to read, right? But she learned recognizing numbers and the alphabet before she turned 2. Like she can identify B, C, D, E, right? So she knew all of them. So I was thinking, so what's stopping her from recognizing Chinese characters? They're also symbols. They also have a name. It's like saying, this is B. Okay, this is Wo. What's the difference, right? So I started introducing Chinese characters and she started learning them. So I thought, oh, so now the goal has gotten higher. We're going to put it another step up.
Yeah.
It's not just understanding, speaking. Now she can read. And in my mind, like looking back, I was also thinking, you know what? How dare I set limitations for her that she will only understand, that she will only speak, that she will not learn how to read. How dare I say that? Because she is always proving to me again and again that she can do more. And if I had just, if I did not set those early limitations, maybe it would have been more. Who knows? But it's funny. So again, I was thinking, okay, she doesn't have to write. She doesn't have to write.
Then she's gonna prove it to you.
As long as she can read, that I would be so happy if she could read.
Yeah.
But she was in the dual language school. So they were being taught to write very simple characters like Gong, Wang.
Yeah.
Like very, very simple ones. Ko. Like, yeah. So when she showed me, like when I saw that she can write these things, I was like, wait a second. She can learn how to write.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so why limit her if she can do it?
Yeah.
But I would have to say that writing is not a priority.
Yeah.
Especially now that, you type, you rarely really write anything.
Right.
Ideally, she can learn and she can write things, but it's not like, I feel like our time can be better used somewhere else at this point.
Yeah. That's amazing. So I want you to share last encouragement for parents. That's somebody like you, when you were saying it's impossible to teach my daughter Mandarin because I know very little. So I know a lot of parents listening, they might know zero, nothing.
Right.
Or
right.
just a little bit like you. But it is possible. Look how far
it is possible. It is a lot of work. It's a lot of work, a lot of time. A lot of heartaches also, because there will be times when you would feel you're not enough, right? Things like that. And so these are all normal things that people go through.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think the main thing I learned is that everyone would have their own strengths and weaknesses. You recognize those and play up to your strength, improve those things that you need to work on, and just try your best.
Yeah.
So concrete example is, for me, I feel like my weakness is that I'm not a native speaker, right? I don't necessarily think in it. So I was always jealous of people who are fluent in it.
Yeah.
And I would even hear people who are fluent in the language not teach their kids the language because it's hard to teach, right?
Yeah.
It's really hard to teach, and the environment is just not,
especially you live in the Western world, and if you know English yourself, sometimes it's just easier to communicate that way. Or else you just have to translate. You have to translate everything. Or a lot of people, they their husband or their spouse, or wife, maybe they're not Chinese, so it's like Trista. Trista's husband is he's not Chinese, so it makes it even harder for her. Yeah.
Right. But in my mind, I was always thinking, if only I have your level of Chinese, everything would have been perfect. Like in my mind, I was like, that's like the ultimate thing. Like I was so jealous, but why are you not doing anything? But I know it because every person would be different, and like I said, every person would have their strength and their weaknesses. So that for me is my weakness, right? But in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, because I am not fluent, I guess I can say I'm fluent. I'm just not, that level that's like native speaker level.
Yeah.
But I can, my strength is that I know when I don't know something, I know where to look. I know how to find the answers. I know how to research for resources. So you figure out like how you can improve that. And also because I am constantly also teaching myself the language, my daughter would see how, oh, even mommy is learning. This is not something that people already know.
Yeah.
Languages are something that people learn every single day. And sometimes we forget, and that's okay, because that's one of her things. Sometimes she can be a perfectionist and she'd be like, I forget. What if I forget? Like, it's okay. You forget, I remind you.
Yeah.
You forget, you don't know, I don't know. We will look for it. It's okay. We're not expected to know everything.
Yeah.
Because sometimes maybe it's overwhelming for kids, right? It's overwhelming and like, but I don't know the language. I'm like, it's okay. You don't know it now. We'll know it. If we forget, we'll remind ourselves.
Even for like native speaker like me, living in the Western world in the US for so long, you still forget. Like sometimes when I go back, like that certain vocabulary, like you get stuck. Like what is that word again?
Yes.
That's normal.
Yes. And there are certain things that, when I'm talking to her, like speaking to her in Mandarin, and then suddenly, oh, I don't know how to say this. And then I'd be like, I should know this. And then I look it up and said, I should have known this. But it's like, it's okay. That's fine. It's part of it. I'm learning, you're learning, and you're seeing that even mommy struggles.
Yeah.
And I think even so that in a way is a weakness, but at the same time, it's become a strength because she's learning that, oh, okay, it's okay to forget. It's okay when I don't know everything. It's okay because we're all learning. So in a way, it has become a strength.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you so much. I mean, I love your energy. Like, Joni, you are the cutest thing. You're so cute, and like your energy, I love it, and I can see like how you're teaching the class, the Mandarin class, how fun it could be.
We'll see.
So where can people find you? And I'm gonna link everything.
Oh yeah.
In the show notes. If you are from New York, Long Island, you guys can join the class.
Right. Little Mandarin Stars.
Little Mandarin Star.
We are Mandarin Stars. So that's IG.
Okay.
And we also have a Facebook page that it should also be Little Mandarin Stars.
Okay. I'm gonna link everything in the show notes so people can find you.
We have a what do you call that? A website. I'll give you the website too.
Awesome. Well, thank you so fun talking to you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, we will stay connected.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a good day.
You too.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Thank you for listening. We have so many amazing guests that are coming on in the future episode. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a thing. Also, make sure you check out show notes. I will link the information in the show notes. Also, check out our freebie and our number course will also be in the show notes. If you want to support us, make sure you leave a review. We would love to hear your feedback. Your support and love will keep us going and bring more guests and more amazing episodes to share to the world. Thank you for now. Bye-bye.